So hi Apoorva, thank you for joining us for the UK Asian Film Festival. This is the 23rd year and we're delighted to have Kanya in the festival. Please can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your film?
All right, so I am a independent filmmaker based in Prague. I've been living here for the past 6 years, 6 years, and my film Kanya is about a girl who is kind of growing up in a very traditional family, trying to come to terms with her body and her mental health when she gets her first period. So it's just a story about how she feels when she's transitioning into a woman.
Great, thank you. And what inspired you to make this type of film? Do you typically focus on kind of traditionally taboo subjects, or was it just a personal area of interest?
Well, this film is actually my graduation film, and I was very tired of making films that were not in alignment with what I really wanted to do. Like before that, I was mostly making Czech films, which is great to learn the language, but I just did not connect with the culture. So for my graduation film, I really wanted to kind of go back to my roots and figure out what I'm interested in. And I realized that I'm really interested in making films that are socially and politically aware.
Mhm.
So I started, I guess, digging deep into my own life to figure out if there's anything that inspires me, which is when I was reminded of this incident when I got my period for the first time and how there was this huge sort of chaotic ritual around it where I had to like sit in front of the entire like family and extended family, and everybody who were there knew what my body was going through. It kind of felt like an invasion of my own privacy.
Mhm.
So I thought that would be an interesting topic to explore. And then, very interestingly, I got my period when I was learning to swim. I did not learn how to swim when I was younger. I was just, yeah, I thought it's a very important skill that I should have. So I decided to go and start learning. And then this happened, and my mom basically stopped me from swimming for a bit because she wanted me to understand what it means to transition into a woman and whatnot. So yeah, so I thought, okay, that's a good like idea for a film. So like, how do I go about it? And I was very sure that I wanted to push the boundaries of short filmmaking. So I really wanted to explore the possibility of shooting a lot of it underwater. And yeah, and actually, the dog sequence in the film is also almost something that happened to my mom. My mom had no idea what it meant to have her period. My grandmother never told her that
Oh, wow.
your body would go through something like this. And I guess typically in a traditional family, what happens is you don't go into the kitchen and stuff, right? So my mom used to cook for those 4 days when my grandmother had her period. And every time my mom was asking her why she doesn't cook, my grandmother would be like, I was bitten by a dog, so you have to take care of the family and cook for the family while I'm recovering. So, and this was a detail that my mom gave me just one day before my shoot. So I thought this is a very interesting thing to add into the film. So we just like figured out how to make this an element of the film later in the edit, like they say, fix it in post. So yeah, we managed to incorporate that as well in the film, I guess. So
I
I hope
thought
that
that
gives
was
you an
really
idea.
interesting, the dog bite sort of analogy, because I think so. My personal view is with something that is taboo, uh, you get all these kind of expressions, but you don't actually say the word, and I think it makes it even
Hmm.
more difficult to break the barrier down and actually talk sort of really realistically about these things. So I found the dog analogy really interesting, and I actually was going to ask you if that was something that came from real life. So it's interesting to hear that it is. So one of my favorite scenes of the whole thing was when when Kanya is at her coming of age ceremony, and she has to dip her toes in the water, but she just goes all in and goes for a swim. And I just found that so full of hope, and to me it seemed like it was a real sign that perhaps the new generation and the younger sort of women coming up are ready to be more open and tackle the sort of the old way of thinking about periods and things like that. I wondered if that was something that you were going for, if that was intentional sort of change of the generation's attitude.
Absolutely, I think you got all of it right, and that was totally the intention of the film as well. The only thing, additional thing that I wanted to add was like, as a character, I wanted to somehow convey the fact that she finds freedom underwater more than she finds that above
Yeah.
the water, like, in her life with her family. But otherwise, yeah, that was totally the intention. And I personally felt like it was, like I said, an invasion of my privacy. So I was wondering, like, why I was never given the chance to say yes or no to something like that, like, okay, you can have the ceremony, but why can't you ask me if I'm okay with it? So that was the question that was always there in my mind when I was writing the story. And yeah, I hope that would change, at least in our generation.
I think it is, and I think that is part of the importance of films like yours, because it opens up the conversation. And I didn't personally have a ceremony like that, but I know it is such a common thing. So for people to be able to see really the kind of emotional toll it can take on a young girl who quite literally one day thinks she's a child and is just enjoying playing around with her friends and running around, and then the next day is just told, I think in the film, her dad says, you're not allowed to go and play with them anymore, with her friends who are all boys, and she likes playing cricket. So I think it really captured the turmoil, I think, that this character felt, and I'm sure so many young women felt at the time. Did you have a similar experience in terms of the friends that you might be allowed to play with or not allowed to play with anymore, or things like that?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think when I was like around 13 or 14, I definitely think I was told what to do and what not to do and how to behave in front of boys. And there's all these restrictions on how to dress. Uh, so yeah, that's where all of what you're seeing in the film comes from as well. Those are things that I did as a child. And then like suddenly after the period uh, situation in my life, I guess it just completely changed. Like, after the ritual, it was like I was a different person through, like, when I was like trying to understand my parents' perspective, it was very difficult, like I just couldn't get why they had to like go to the other extreme, like but I mean, to be fair, like I don't have that kind of, or neither does my sister, for example. Like we don't go through these kind of things anymore. We have absolute freedom. So I think I've been lucky in that sense. But I always ask my parents why they had to do it that way, and so yeah, I guess it's just a part of them growing up with us as well.
It's good, I suppose, now they can see a film like this and really understand, because I think sometimes it's difficult when you only have one traditional way of thinking and exploring
Mm,
things. You really do need movies and books and the arts to open up these sort of
yeah.
topics, I think. And I wondered if you could tell the audience a little bit about creating art during COVID, and has it been a lot trickier, or have you found it easier because people are working, remotely? If you're working on anything at the moment.
Sure. When I made Kanya, I didn't even like it. There was no COVID situation happening, but I did find it very difficult to push the film into the festival sector. Like before we had our world premiere at Busan, which was like a huge deal for us. We got rejected by over 75 film festivals, and most of them were because they were cancelled. Like they just weren't happening, and they wanted us to apply like the following year or whatever. So it became very tricky to push the film into film festivals. But once I think all like the film festival sector kind of got the hang of how to manage it, it became easier because now I get to meet people. That I wouldn't be able to meet otherwise because of these kind of Q&A sessions. Yesterday I had another Q&A session with another Indian Film Festival in the US, and I met some filmmakers that I've been wanting to meet ever since I wanted to be a filmmaker, and it's super quick and easy, and we are now connected on social media. So the power of internet definitely helps in that sense, like with my short film. And now I've just started working. I just finished the final draft of my debut feature film, so I have a Czech producer attached to the project, and now we're trying to find co-producers, and I try to push the project forward. And this is where it's a bit tricky, to be honest, because there is no way of shooting it in India. Obviously, I want to make my stories in India, and I don't think I can shoot it anytime soon. And there are already a lot of backlogs in like film releases back home, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to shoot it next. So I've kind of slightly changed the strategy from finding producers in India to finding European co-producers and going in that direction. And it's been going okay, to be honest. It's not that bad, but it's definitely slower for my taste.
Yes, I think everyone's sort of adapting to a bit of a slower pace of life because
Mm,
it's a bit more difficult to get hold of people, I think, when they're not physically in an office. And of course, the situation in India at the moment is really heartbreaking and
yeah.
difficult. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the subject matter of your upcoming of the feature film.
Sure. So the feature film is essentially a social satire, and it's set in the backdrop of Pondicherry in India. And the film deals with essentially a father-daughter relationship, and the protagonist is a female protagonist who's looking for constant validation from her father. Uh, and she doesn't realize that she needs this validation throughout her life, and how she comes out of that and breaks free, like how she manages that, or she doesn't, is the story, I guess.
That sounds so interesting. And please do come back to the festival when you have that, because we would be interested in screening it, because we have
Absolutely.
all sort of female-led, female-centric stories, and we're
Mm.
really interested in promoting those kinds of things. How do you feel your male colleagues could help amplify traditionally women centric stories, and do you think it's important for them to join in on the conversation, because it seems like they possibly might get more of a chance to speak up about things like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that front, but I'm not sure if they can help. Like, I don't think I look at them as like a voice
Mm.
uh, for female filmmakers, or like stories that are female centric. But I do think that they can help by collaborating with female directors. Like even with Kanya, for example, 70% of the crew wasn't intentional, but 70% of the crew were female. And I'm making it intentional, that I'm trying to find people who are who are like aspiring to be production designers or editors to come on board, and I'm trying to see how I can collaborate with people, particularly female artists, to bring this movie out there soon. And yeah, in terms of how they can contribute, I guess they can help by sort of being aware of what we're going through and empathize with us, not necessarily sympathize or like try to amplify the voice. All they have to do is stand by us and support us. Like my DOP right now, who's like on board for the feature. Uh, he's a very interesting guy because he's raised by two moms. Like his uh, he comes from a family that is very unconventional. So he understands my perspective a lot because he has that strong female sort of energy in him, like since he was a kid. So I'm like actively going and finding these kind of people who understand uh what people like me go through. And the way he supports me is very interesting. He never questions or judges my decisions. Like I think that's how male colleagues can help without like questioning us or judging us, or you know trying to just be there and like support us, just be that pillar of support.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think the empathy point is really interesting. I completely agree with that, because I feel like you can feel the support without them actually having to do something physically. You just need them to really understand, and if
Exactly.
you're saying something to believe in you and trust in you, and I think that's a really good message to get across. Would you have any advice to your younger self, um, if you could kind of look back and say something to your younger self when you were going through your coming of age ceremony, when you did start your period?
I guess what I would tell my younger self now would be that I should embrace how unique I am. I mean, my name technically means that as well, but I was never able to like sort of accept that. I always looked at myself as an outcast, so I wish I had someone telling me that I'm perfect the way I am, and that it's okay to embrace my uniqueness. So I guess that's what I tell my younger self.
I think that's a great piece of advice, and I think you also feel that from your short film. I think if you were a young woman watching that, you do get that message across very well. And do you have any tips or anything for any aspiring artists who want to get into film or creating film?
Mm, yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I've reached the level where I can give tips or advice to filmmakers, but one thing that I have understood that works for me, and I believe that it would work for everybody, is to look for stories in your life first, because you've lived through it, you've experienced it, so you would be the best person to tell that story. So if there are filmmakers trying to make films out there and are looking for ideas, they probably have all of it in their life. They don't need to look for it outside. So that would be my sort of tip, I guess,
I
for
think that's a
filmmakers.
really, really good tip. Thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A. So the UK Asian Film Festival is running from the 26th of May to the 6th of June, and your film is part of it. Everyone can visit our website, which is www.ucaf.com, for all the information, the scheduling and tickets. Would you like to share your own website or your own any kind of upcoming things with our audience before we sign off?
Sure. I guess I don't have a website, but I do have an Instagram profile, which is Apoorva underscore Satish. That's my Instagram handle. So I post everything about my upcoming films and projects there. And hopefully, yes, I'm just about to post about UK Asian Film Festival there as well. So we've just been working on the press release here in Czech Republic. So
Amazing.
definitely, yeah, hope you guys in.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, and we will speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.